stage and big hands. After the lunch, it is very tough to listen, but I will again request to give big applause to all the guests. So, आपकी भी नींद उड़ जाए. We have amongst us Honorable Nishar Ahmed ji, a very learned speaker and past president of ICSI. I will request Advocate Balwant Rao from Jalore, please come here and present a bouquet to Sri Nishar Ahmed ji. My request to CARP Vijay ji, please come and present a memento to Sri Nishar Ahmed ji. We have amongst us a very senior chartered accountant, my guide and philosopher, H.M. Singhvi ji also. I will request Pramod ji Patni, senior chartered, please come here and present a bouquet to Singhvi sahab. My request to Pawan Mittal ji, chartered accountant from Sri Ganganagar, regional secretary of the RTCA, come here and present a bouquet to Singhvi sahab. Memento. We have amongst us Secretary General, All India Federation of Tax Practitioners, very leading chartered accountant of Bombay, a very expert of the tax, Sri H.N. Motiwala ji. I will request T.C. Jain Sahab, Advocate Jaipur, please come here and present a bouquet to Sri Motiwala ji. My request to Sunil Agarwal, chartered accountant, Tejraj Tax Consultant Association Jaipur, please come here, Sunil Agarwal ji, and present a memento to H.N. Motiwala ji. We also welcome Sri Mathur Sahab and Sugani ji. And before, so now my request, Sri Antulal ji Gupta, please come here and present a bouquet to Anil Mathur ji. And my request to Madam Ritu G.P. Das from Kota, please come here and present a memento to Anil Mathur ji. My request to Sri J.S. Rathod ji, please come here, J.S. Rathod Chartered Accountant, and present a bouquet to Rajiv Sogani ji. And Sri Ramudarji Sharma, Chartered Accountant Jaipur, please come here and present a memento to Rajiv ji. Friends, we announced earlier that there will be a lucky draw of technical sessions. So in this session we hold a lucky draw. If you have your visiting card, you can put that visiting card in a tin kept here. And after the session, we will declare 3 lucky draws. And the winners, if winners are present here, they will be given awards later. So you all are requested to put their visiting cards in this. But अभी नहीं जल आराम से डाल दें, जल्दी नहीं है. We start the session, time निकाल डालते रहें. और now कुछ पता थोड़ी होगा. I hand over the mic to Honorable Chairman of this session, Honorable Justice Sri Rajesh Ji Bindal Sahab, for further proceeding of the session.
Sir, we have mic.
वहाँ से क्या करना है, इसकी जरूरत नहीं है इसको बाद में. हाँ. आगे नाम पहले दे देते हैं, वो बोल दिया. Very good afternoon to all present here, and welcome to this second technical session. Subject we all know, it's a panel discussion on Companies Act, and
You see, the session has been planned like that there would be some question-answer session, interactive session kind of a thing. Some questions are there. And I think the organizers have put this session at a very appropriate time. Time means after sumptuous food, they know that many of us may be feeling sleepy, so there may be less questions. But in any case, they have some questions already put to the panelists, they will answer it. But one thing is clear, that if you come to Jaipur in any of the conferences, I have experience of coming 2-3 times, they don't only provide good food, but also good food for thought also. So there are many plus points which you will never find at, I think, at other places. Now a little bit, the theme of the conference, Make in India, role of tax professionals, it's a very well thought of current issue, as we can say. In September only our Prime Minister announced this, and this has been chosen as a theme. And there is no doubt about it that it's very important, as if the manufacturing activity will increase, so the work of the tax professionals. They will have more problems, because the idea of the Prime Minister is that to invite investment, make in India and then sell outside. So that means the market is outside. Buyers are outside, manufacturing in India, investment from outside India. So it's a cross-border kind of a thing. Once it is cross-border, so then many issues regarding investment is there, regarding taxabilities are there. Many issues will arise which our tax professionals or the advocate, chartered accountants, they will have to deal with. So this is one aspect of this, though there are many other things are required for providing facilities, that the atmosphere in the country is like that it is the best for inviting investment. As on today, as the figures show, our country stands at serial number 142 in 189 countries for investment-friendly countries are concerned, they say, data I had seen. But one plus point is there which is being marketed, that out of the total population we have 80 million, about 80 million below 35. So we have a young force who can work. So that is the thing that is being marketed also. But in any case, as has been said in the morning session also, I think we need to create a very good atmosphere, and we should contribute whatever best we can in that. But one thing is there in taxation. Everybody at many times said that, because the tax conference, I am just a little bit touching that part, the taxes should be simplified, and so is the problem in the Companies Act also, which has been newly enacted. There are many problems, many issues which the panelists will discuss. Now, one thing which is required is the change in mindset also. Mindset, yes, professionals certainly, but the department side also. They should not think that every businessman is a evader of tax only. Sometimes they proceed with that presumption only. So there has to be some mindset, change in mindset at the end of the department also. This is more so experienced in the transfer pricing cases also, because there also the question is regarding your foreign investments and some dealings with the foreign countries. And now DTC, they have already introduced the bill in the parliament, probably they are coming out with it. But how it works, in what manner, but one thing is clear in that, whatever I have seen little bit, is that technology will be one very important aspect of that, because that input tax credit or something, that will be all probably technology based. The verification of transactions and all that. So we'll all have to be equipped with that also, to keep up with that. Now one very good thing which has been done by Mr. Pankaj Ghia, now only recently I have seen that he has created a WhatsApp group for all these kind of news. I think this is a very good idea he has floated, and a lot of news is coming, because my number is also with him, so I also get updated on many things. May not be required daily, but still some news comes in. The same thing can be followed by the federation also, I think, at the national level. Why? Because the general is sent, monthly is also there, then quarterly is there. All this can be sent through email also. They can get the input from all different state units or the regional units about the important judgments, and those can be pushed through email also. That's very easier and the simple mode, so that everybody is updated in law. Now, coming on the subject, as we know that this act has been now, 2013 act is there, partly enforced, partly not enforced. Some problems are sought to be sorted out with this new act, but some more have been created also, as the panelist will give you more details about that. Some issues, yes, on the positive side are there, like some safety for the investors kind of thing, FDRs and all that, but some are problematic areas. These issues will be dealt with in detail by the panelist. They will answer some of the questions already raised or some of the questions to be raised by you. But one thing is there that there are some areas where some more problems have been created. And some problems probably they have tried to sort out only by seeing one or two or three isolated cases. So those things, I think the professionals who are on this side are well versed with that, and they know the practical part of it, because in courts these kind of cases normally come very few. Because in courts, normally we get the cases of merger, demerger or the liquidation kind of thing. That is the main part of litigation which comes to the court. These companies that deal with many issues, like the directors are there, your share capital, your meetings and all that, these issues are very few which come to the court. So they will deal with those issues and clarify on that. One more thing which I have experienced is, though this new act is coming, it has come partly and partly this being enforced, but there are many issues which are interrelated with different other statutes, and many times the amendments are made or new act is enacted, but they are not taking care of the provisions in the other act. So that creates an anomalous position. Sometimes they put some non-obstante clauses also, but then also it creates a litigation and then interpretation and then some delay part, as is always said in the courts. Because that requires interpretation, then which clause is to be followed. Because the earlier statute is there, some new statute is there. So this also is required to be taken care of while enacting a new law or while making any amendments in the law. Because that can avoid or the litigation which can be generated or which is generated. Because many times some parties are interested in delaying the processes only. Now if you see the foreign investment coming in like GDRs or FCCBs, those are not directly covered under the Act. There are many SEBI guidelines on that. There are many RBI circulars on that. So all things have to be correlated. It's better if they are governed by one law, if they have to invite investment. So that would be a good idea if one knows that where the law is found at that point. But still there are some different kind of guidelines for that. Now with us, I will just briefly introduce the speakers which we have. The main speaker is Mr. Nasir Ahmed. He had been the president of the Institute of Chartered Company Secretaries. Then Mr. H.M. Singhvi is there. He is a senior chartered accountant. Mr. H.M. Motiwala, he is also a senior chartered accountant. Mr. Anil Mathur, he is also a senior chartered accountant, having experience in the profession from 30 to 40 years. And then moderator is Mr. Rajiv Sogani. He is also equally experienced in that line. So I will not take much of your time because the important part is to be discussed by the panelist. But one thing I have just read somewhere, because these are all taxation and all these things are a little bit dry in the sense that tax is called taxing on the pocket also and on the brain also practically. But one very good query and answer which I had read, I will just share with you and conclude, that one SSC had filed his return, and there was a query or a column in the return that the number of dependents you said, you tell us, he was to fill that column. What he had filled in and what was not accepted by the government or the department was, he said 65% of the population not paying taxes, 21 lakh or odd figures he had given of the illegal immigrants living in India, 9 lakh criminals living in 1400-1500 odd jails, And then above all he said about 544 and odd MPs of the country. So that was not accepted by the department. So he said, I don't know what else I have left to fill in this column. So this is the kind of, and this is I think one of the reason probably the people are not very friendly, or as in the morning it was said it should be made user friendly or kind of thing, are not very friendly to pay the taxes. Because then also many part of it is wasted also or misused or kind of things. But still, we can't, with these isolated instances, we can't abstain from discharging our duty primarily, we as professional also or as a taxpayer also. But what is required is that we need to check where they are wasting the money so that it is properly used. And one idea I think the corporate social responsibility they have put in now on the bigger units. If that money is spent, probably in my opinion, I don't know if it has been challenged or not, because in our High Court it has, to my knowledge, it has not been challenged. But that money I think will be properly utilized because it will be controlled by the corporates only. So they will see that yes, any penny they want to spend for the corporate social responsibility or for the social good, that should be spent properly. So with these words, I am thankful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to be there in this session. Taxation, yes, we have been attending and learning, but this new law also, I will be learning something here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Justice Bindal, and very warm good afternoon to all the participants. The task is very difficult. Keep the session going and interesting and keeping you awake. Friends, this session will be interactive session wherein we will be discussing certain queries which we have collected from the different delegates for the purpose of seeking answers or the expert views from the panelists. We have a very rich panel today. We have, as has already been introduced by Bindal Sahab, Motiwala Sahab, Nasir Ahmed Sahab, H.M. Singhvi Sahab and Anil Mathur Sahab, who will be responding to the different queries. Broadly, we have selected 4 topics to be deliberated upon by way of interactive session through the queries. These 4 topics are acceptance of deposits from public and restriction on making advances in loans, for which we will have expert views of Nisar Ahmed Sahab. Then we have role and responsibilities of the auditors, the challenges which auditors are likely to face in view of the new reporting requirement under the Companies Act 2013. We have Mr. Motiwala, a past council member also, who will be responding to the queries on this topic. Then we have Shri Anil Mathur Sahab, who will be responding to the queries on corporate governance and lot many procedural requirements which we are supposed to comply these days under the new law. And we also have very senior chartered accountant H.M. Singhvi Sahab, who will be dealing with the queries on role of independent directors. And friends, we all know 2013 Act, when it came, we all were expecting some relief from Modi government. अच्छे दिन की बहुत आशा थी. उसके बाद बहुत दिनों तक कोई amendment नहीं आया है. 17 दिसंबर को कुछ amendments आए हैं. Before we conclude, we will request Nisar Ahmed Sahab to briefly explain the changes which have been brought about by the Parliament by way of amendment on 17th of this December. And for the purpose of setting the ball rolling, I'll first request Nisar Ahmed Sahab to speak for about 10 minutes how under the new environment companies should function and operate. And thereafter we will begin with the query session. First I request Nisar Ahmed Sahab.
Very good afternoon to all of you. Honorable Justice Mr. Bindal, distinguished panel, Mr. Rajiv Sugani, moderator, office bearer of the 4 federations present here, faculty, distinguished invitee, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, very good afternoon to all of you. Before we have our discussion, panel discussions, I've been asked to talk about how to plan the working of companies under the Companies Act 2013, and I'll give you a couple of points and then leave it, because I'm not dealing with the law today here, and then we'll leave it to the panel for discussions as and when the question framed. I will give you complete picture about what is the India today, and the fact sheet says India is 142 ranking out of 189 countries ranked by World Bank. We have to see this, how we have to move, and there is a commitment of the Prime Minister who was made in G20, has also ministered when he was discussing bilateral talk with the industrialist in America, and various other forum, that he is not happy with the ranking of 142, he wants to bring back to 50. So we all have to work in these directions, and large role of the professionals, both company law experts, taxation experts, both direct, indirect, all professionals in all field, they are lawyers, and all are interested to work together to achieve this objective of our Prime Minister. Look at this, the second aspect which I thought I should share with you, that is we have a lower middle income group. Of course, India is number 3 in the world map, as far as PPP, that is purchasing power parity, the power is concerned. After America, China, India is number 3 in PPP, and by 2050, Government of India has now set a target for itself to become number 1 country in the world by having $83 trillion economy under purchasing power parity methods. Therefore, we must think this low income is not good for us. We have to go into around 1,570 per capita US dollar, has to go at least 3,000 to 3,500 to reach to this level. So we have to go a long way. This is the map we thought it to share with you. Distance to foundation frontier points 53.97. The advanced country is having 80 plus. The percentage nearest to 100 is the best one. Therefore, you have to travel along to reach to this level of 80 or 70 plus or 80 plus. We have a large population, 1,252 million. We all know 125 crores, which Prime Minister used to talk about. It's a kind of, the system, market. And here is the market, Make in India policy, which Prime Minister has unveiled. In the very beginning of his talk, he has set the ball rolling. Everybody has started talking to as a policy. Friends, but because of the population which we have in this country, the governance which we have to set up this, and therefore this important aspect to be seen in this direction, how we have to run the businesses to reach to this level, because we have a population, we have enlightened regulations, and we have also a large-based democratic systems and the values. We have a very, very vigilant court looking at this movement of the executives as well as that of the legislature, seeing this, whether things are happening or not happening. The next point, the government has committed a very large level of, job creations. It's a commitment to this government. The government has promised a rapid economic growth. It is possible once we are going to do this. The government has given a slogan, minimum government, maximum governance. These are all tools to look into that fact sheet which I have mentioned to you before. India is a manufacturing hub and attract global investors. His Lordship has set the ball rolling in the opening remarks when he has mentioned about this past manufacturing part and the investors' commitment, FDI and so on and so forth. And the government has also given a commitment to all public sector undertakings, both state and central, to have the sourcing of 20% of the total sourcing from the MSMEs. So therefore, MSMEs, we also 80 to 90%, the total contribution in the businesses are now coming from small and micro, small, medium enterprises. Therefore, this big picture yet to see, those 6 months we already gone, but these are the big picture that I mentioned in the fact sheet. And the big picture yet to see, because that it will be translated into action, and that in this direction, I personally feel the 3 or 4 aspects that I mentioned apart from tax laws reforms, land acquisition reforms require a very immediately. Government has already seized off. Labor laws reforms, of course, a state of Rajasthan has initiated something, and the blueprint has been already made, but other states to follow, center to follow also. Infrastructure policy, very clear roadmap to be given to. And the 4th one, power sector reforms, which will require uninterrupted power supply and the affordable price to all the stakeholders to achieve this fact sheet when we are thinking to have the 50%. Banks, in that corrections, banks, we have to see this, who the monies are. It is our money there in the banking systems. And therefore, if you see this, today the NPA rate, growth rate and bad debts are, it's a very, very large sum. It is none of the money, it is our money. It's a public money put into the form of deposits. We have to seriously think as a professionals how to minimize the bad debts and the NPAs as far as this part is concerned if you have to achieve. PPP model has already been broken, but we need to look into this, how the PPP model to be seen in this direction. And last but not the least in this introduction part is to strict norms for doing business, rules and procedures are to set to this line that this is the game, rule of the game, should be known to everybody, a stakeholder, whether it's a civil society, whether it's investors, whether it is a consumer, and it is a civil, and the regulators. Everybody has to know what is the rules of the game and has to be followed. And therefore, I just leave it to the thoughts, and because we all know the choice of forms, we all know the raising capital, we know that private placement is another issue. I have raised this issue in the many times. The private placement, preferential allotment, right issue under the new law, we discuss when our moderator initiate and the question may be flowed. I'm trying to put it here to note down our questions in the sense that we will discuss in the half an hour, 40 minutes time with a very rich panel which we have today, as Mr. Sogani had mentioned about public offering and right issue. As far as deposit part is concerned, I'm going to discuss when we are going to have raised questions by the moderator, and the very source mentioned about the public, and the members and the directors will deal with this. Accounts and audit, I leave this. These are the questions under the new law to be seen. Restatement of statutory records, the financial statements. The time frame is there, one has to really see through. Mandatory reopening by the regulator, by the court, by the tribunal, to approach. Board's reports is a very, very important aspect to be seen. In the times to come, in 3 months' time down the line, everybody has started now thinking in this direction under the new law, 134, the board's report is a very, very important document to be seen. I'm trying to flag this issue for all of you to create a kind of, questions. CSR is another big issues. We definitely deal with the matter as and when the question being thrown. Internal audit, another area that has to be seen in this direction. Friends, directors, a lot of responsibility. We have the rich panel to discuss about independent director. But what about working directors? Their role and responsibility vis-a-vis independent directors. Non-working director, those who are nominee director. Today I have seen a news item, the SBI chairperson has mentioned, she has raised this issue. Today news item has been in Times of India when I was flying to Delhi. She has raised a very larger issue, how the nominee directors are being faced. And the government, she has already approached Ministry of Corporate Affairs how to deal with this subject. Resident director, another concept being flown. Number of directorship and automatic vacation of directors, very large issue that has been put into there is no restrictions. Audio video conference, that is another area which we have to now start practicing on this line, how to deal with the board's meeting through audio or video conference. Loan to directors. Lot of clarity has come. We'll discuss this aspect by section 185. Typically, we all know 185, 186, and 188. These are the 3 sections which talks about. Of course, we have another section called the forward dealings and the insider trading, total prohibition and ban. Friends, let me before conclude, I'll see this critical analysis on the amendment. Some question being raised. Critical analysis, when I say it is an eyewash. The amendment I see is the one word. This amendment which have been hyped by the regulators, by the government agencies, of course they have been now misled the minister perhaps in this process, not to provide the things which have been now seen through by the professionals. We have given thousands of comments on the Companies Act 2013 in over 9 months' time, sir. In whole last 1 year, we have been giving almost every nook and corner the issues are being framed. But what kind of amendments you have seen, sir? All this eyewash. I did online. That has been done in the name of ease of doing business. But it is not certainly ease of doing business, because we are removing section 1 lakh capital, 5 lakhs capital. Nobody is bothered today. If you want to incorporate a company as a private limited company, at least minimum your contribution 1 lakh rupees. It has already been now set right. Year 2000 amendment that provides for minimum capital base, but because of to have fly-by-night operator, they should not incorporate a company and keep it in the self, as a self company. So therefore it is another issue. In the name of common seal, historically we know the common seal to be there, and not all the documents require common seal. It says, okay, it is optional for somebody to maintain this common seal, and that is said that it is ease of doing business. So in the name of ease of doing business, perhaps that has been now given a very wrong picture. It is not the ease of doing business what Honorable Prime Minister has been now propagating and contemplating everywhere to bring back to level the kind of single window clearance kind of situation. Industry is not restricted and relaxed. Therefore, in conclusion, let me say, government should focus on making businesses as easy and honest and as possible. Government duty is not that to know how to do and all these kind of things. You create a kind of atmosphere, clear roadmap, and therefore you move forward. I avoid artificial props, giving a call kind of situation. I'm giving a second thoughts for all of you to please ponder it over. The third one is curbing inflation and fiscal deficit. How you to deal with that is a question mark for all the party to come this one, letting the market to decide which sector to flourish, not to decide how you are going to deal with like MSMEs, 20% sourcing, mandatory sourcing, etc., etc. Before I say thank you, and I'll give you the 2 points for all of you here, comments. We can enact all the laws we want. Anytime any legislature can give a law. But it's very difficult in a country where few instruction we have with the law enforcing agencies. We hardly have law enforcement agency. Those are regulators. They are not having in touch with the professionals and the users of the law before enacting the law. Therefore, it is absolutely ineffective proposition, but it is in all often terms the instrument of exploitation. So these kind of law, look at this, read any section, 80, 42, any section, 73, etc. 2 crore rupees, all the amount involved. Which one is higher? So amount, the kind of penalty and imprisonment, it is going to give a lot of things. Therefore, my appeal through this forum to the ministry, therefore the Ministry of Corporate Affairs should evaluate each section of the Act and the rules made thereunder with the help of domain experts to understand the real problem being faced by the industry and the professionals. Thank you very much for patience hearing, and we will have this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed Saab, for presenting a micro view of the things prevailing in the country. Now, friends, we begin with the interactive session. We have 60 minutes at our disposal. I'll be raising queries with the panelists, but anybody interested in raising the queries, they may send the queries in writing to me so that they can also be taken up. And before we commence, friends, one thing, because both the speakers have mentioned that we stand at 142nd position in terms of ease of doing business. लेकिन मेरा निवेदन केवल ये है दोस्तों कि अगर इसमें हम ऊपर चले गए तो there can be a question mark on the prospects of the profession. There is a inverse relationship between the situation of ease of doing business in the country and probably the scope of work for professionals. That is one thing. Anyhow, friends, my first query.
One announcement, please. AFTP ITAT Coordination Committee meeting is going on at the first floor above the reception. Anybody interested, please go on in the AFTP ITAT Coordination Committee, and thereafter NEC meeting, National Executive Council meeting of AFTP would continue in the same place.
So my first query is to Motiwala Saab, and that is related to auditing. So a lot of changes have been introduced in auditing, auditors' responsibility, even regulating the auditors in the Companies Act 2013. Maybe it is a fallout of things like Satyam scheme. But one very important reporting requirement under the new Companies Act is about the frauds. Now, sir, how do you perceive this new obligation of reporting about frauds? What are the challenges auditors will face, whether it will be of any use to the users of the financial statements or the other stakeholders or the investors? Your views on the challenges and what is it all about? What is the reporting requirement in fact and the challenges it is throwing open? Motiwala sir.
Thank you, Sugani ji. Yeah, it's okay. Honorable Justice Rajesh Bindal ji, past President Nisar Ahmad ji of ICSI, Senior Chartered Accountant Singhvi, and C. Anil ji Mathur, and friends. The first question itself is a problem because generally auditors' duty or auditors was considered as a watchdog and not bloodhound. So auditor has to see what is going on as per the books of accounts and how the business is conducted, where there is any system and as per that system. Now it is not only the watchdog, but that dog has to bark. The reason is because he has to report on the fraud. And if you read the section 143(12), which says that any fraud made on the company by the officers and employees of the company. Now, how the officers and employees would make the fraud, that auditor has to find out. Okay, that after finding out, he has to report to the audit committee, and audit committee will refer to the board, and within 45 days, answer has to be received from the board. And after that, he has to report within 15 days to central government, and that is why I have said that auditor is not only the watchdog, but he has to bark now. He has to inform to the central government within 60 days that some fraud has been happened. First of all, whether it is possible to find out the fraud, no doubt materiality will always remain. But the question is, employees and officers as well as management in close knit, and what they make a fraud, how the auditors would come to know. He is a third person, he is not sitting there. And it would be very great responsibility of the auditor to report upon that. I understand that there is an amendment that they are fixing the limit when the fraud is to be reported on the basis of the turnover. But yet it is not, enacted in the law, and I have no idea what limit Parliament would fix to report about the law. Otherwise, each fraud, auditor cannot report even though material. And material is again a relative term. It depends upon what the quantum is, what the profit is, what the turnover is, and it will depend upon the relative of the materiality as well as relative of the auditor, what the auditor considers that it is a significant. And it will be very difficult to report. Let's see, unless amendment, yes, is very rightly said by the president of the ICSI, that whatever the amendment made is only eyewash. There is nothing in the amendment, and real problem has not been considered. Only eyewash has been made to make the amendment. And according to me, if this act has to come into the play, and it has come into the play, and which clearly shows that it is a bureaucracy rules the country and not the Prime Minister or Finance Minister or the corporate ministers. And if this is the act to be implemented, probably tomorrow there will be shortage of the jails, because all auditors would have some response. He will not have sleepless night. He has to remain awake. Again, the point is, fun of this is that if auditor is convicted, then not only he has to refund the fee, whatever he has charged the audit fee, he has to refund to the company, and he has to compensate or give the damages, whatever suffered by the governments or any other institution. Now, first of all, auditors don't get the fee in time, right? That I know because I am auditor, right? Even after 1 year also, we are not getting our audit fee. unless we start that New Year's audit, we'll say that you send the check, then we'll start. Sir, गवर्नमेंट को तो वो आप फी दे दोगे, पर दूसरा डैमेजेस कौन देगा? वो आपके खिस्से से जाएगा. And it is very dangerous position. Convicted, यानी see today in law you could be convicted on any count, and if you are convicted, you have to refund the fee, you have to give the damages. I mean, it is very surprising. And first and second, you are losing the audit. That is also very correct. Yes, Sugani ji.
Definitely the law is there. Now we need to report about the frauds, and therefore we need to amend our approach towards audit. Probably our documentation focus needs to cover the possibility of frauds also, that therefore they don't go undetected and we are capable of reporting. Sir, one more issue, what about CARO? Now under the 2013 Act, will there be something similar to CARO or not? As on today, what is the position?
Yeah. Earlier in 1975, there was a Mao CARO that has been changed to CARO in 2003. But 2003 CARO was dependent on the 1956 Act, and 21 clauses had been drafted or have been drafted on the basis of the 1956 Act. Now the Act has been changed, and CARO has to come into the play before probably after, April 2015, because most of the public companies would like to finalize the balance sheet in the first month of the April 2015. So government has to come out with the CARO. CARO, there is a clause 21 which says that fraud on the company has to be reported. But what is the fraud on the company? And I have seen very less reporting on the fraud on the company. And fraud is again a relative term because it's not defined under the Companies Act. So you have to go to section 17 of the Contract Act, which is a deceit in short, right? So if you go to deceit, but who has deceived to the company, how the auditor will come to know? Whatever the procedure, yes, documentation is the basic thing in the audit. And that is what documentation we did on the basis of, or we do on the basis of the what is the record. But what the record for the fraud has to be kept. And how the company will know that fraud has happened unless they find that some misappropriation has happened. Otherwise, it is very difficult because in the normal course, I mean giving, again, it is not a material, but the traveling expenses. If traveling expenses is inflated by the employees, then how would you know as an auditor that it is inflated? Or wrong bill has been produced by the officers. Then how would you know that it is not a correct bill? And many times management also tries to get the bills. Now whether it is a, I mean now how the auditors will come to know that these are the bogus bills. And that is fraud on the company. Because officers would include even directors also, officers in default, right? So managing director also would be included. So how the auditors, and it has to be very cautious. It is now to sign any balance sheet will require thorough investigation. And one of the audit book we have stated that auditor is not investigator. But now that question is, auditor has to investigate and do the audit.
Thank you, sir. My next question is to Anil Mathur sahab. Sir, in addition to the focus on audit and auditors, another focus of this 2013 Act has been on corporate governance. A lot of changes are there to, say, enhance the corporate governance level in the companies. But my first question is why this is necessary for private limited companies, why government wants to intervene, and what are the sections which are there for the purpose of or for the cause of corporate governance, which has made the functioning of private limited companies more formal, difficult, cost and time consuming. So I request you to throw light on this aspect, particularly with reference to the private limited companies.
Thank you, Swaganji. Honorable Justice Bindal Sahab and my other esteemed panelists. Well, the thin line between a private company and a public company, I think now there is hardly any bridge. That bridge under the old Act 1956 has been totally removed. So even if you are having a private limited company, the compliance level is almost similar to the public companies, barring a very, very few things.
In 1956 Act, probably in case of private limited companies, we need not refer to the Act even, because most of the sections were not applicable on private limited companies.
Even you go for the corporate governance report, it was a monotonous report. In case of a private companies, we never bothered about. Now look at everything, right from the concept of internal audit. It has become now mandatory requirement. As Motiwala Sahab has already covered this audit part, bloodhound, whatever you can. I mean, you can't expect an auditor to not only audit the documents, but he has to be a face reader also. Whether this employee or officer is likely to commit a fraud on the company. Look at the compliance levels of filing of the resolutions. They have so much increased. The corporate social responsibility, that is another area. Now CSR, you have got if the company is falling into CSR, then you have to have a special committee constituted for that, and you have to have an independent director on it. A private company is also covered into corporate social responsibility. The private company otherwise is not required to have independent auditor, although rules prohibit, but then Act says that you have to have an independent director as well. So those so many things, and this cost and making a compliance on private companies, I think this is going to be too rigorous to really cope up for those private companies who have got a small turnover, or who are the drawing room companies. I think they will have to look forward whether to continue the business under this environment or not.
Sir, two specific questions. What is the requirement of spending on CSR, and what all different resolutions required to be filed in the name of corporate governance, the consent of the directors, what all those new compliance requirements on private limited companies? And first, of course, what is the applicability of CSR on different types of companies, and whether it is only on listed companies or only on public companies or all companies with reference to some turnover, etc. So what is the law?
Well, the present law for this corporate social responsibility, there are three criteria. They are based on the net worth, turnover and profit. So if you have got a net worth of 500 crores rupees, or you have got a turnover of 1,000 crores, or a profit of 5 crores rupees, then you are covered for a corporate social responsibility. And any company which falls into a corporate social responsibility, it has to form a committee. And minimum 3 directors have to be there. One of them has to be an independent director. Now the other requirement is regarding spending.
That is one important thing to be noted, that even a private limited company, because of that CSR committee requirement, needs to have one independent director. So the private limited company is also required to have independent director, not directly but indirectly on account of compliance with the CSR.
Although the corporate social responsibility rules make some restriction that the private company need not to have an independent director, but the thing is, you have got an act which prescribes, and you have got a rules which give you a leniency. Act would, this is the prudence that the act would always prevail upon rules. So, I mean, if you look that way also, whatever, I mean, and this is one of the examples. I think there are so many things where the acts and rules override with each other in this Companies Act. This is one of the biggest problems of this act, maybe the drafting mistakes or anything. But coming back to the spending, I think 2% of the average net profit of last 3 years, and that profit has to be calculated in terms of section 198 of the act. So that has to be actually spent. The word is you have to spend. The draftsmen have been very clever. I think they don't say you have to provide for, you have to incur. The word has been spent.
But what about if the amount is not spent? What are the penalties? What are the consequences if the amount is not spent?
Well, I think government, for a change, has not really, and I think to the best of my knowledge, has not made any specific provisions regarding penalizing on such companies. But yes, they have also come out with the ministry has written that for the time being we are not making any penalties for not spending the relevant money. But yes, we will come out with that if you don't spend on that. So far, there are no penal consequences.
So it is only disclosure. The unspent amount needs to be disclosed.
It has to be reported to the board of directors, and then reasons and etc. They have to go to they have to make form part of the report of board of directors. In case the company fails to spend it.
Thank you, Mathur. And a related issue which is cropping just now in my mind, what about making provision of the unspent amount in the financial statements? I'll seek guidance of Motiwala Sahab. Suppose 100 rupees becomes the amount I need to spend on account of that calculation of 2%. 60 I have already spent, 40 I have not spent. As an auditor, do I need to create a provision of 40 or what? What is the accounting requirement, if Motiwala Sahab can throw light on this?
Sir, as per section 128 of the Companies Act, companies have to maintain books of accounts on mercantile basis or accrual basis, and therefore they have to provide for the expenses as well as they have to provide for the accrual of income. Now, whatever the amount of CSR has to be provided in the books. Whatever you have spent is out of that amount, and whatever not spent, board has to report in its report that following amounts or certain amounts have not been spent, and even if nothing is spent, then there is a provision that you have to report in the board why you are not providing or why you are not spending. Reason has to be given by the board. But books of accounts, every company has to maintain on accrual basis. So 2% of the net profit of the last 3 years has to be provided on 31st March 2015. If it is not spent, board has to give the reason. Whatever amount spent, then unspent amount would come in that, because whatever spent will be debited to that account, and then whatever the balance remains is unspent amount. But that liability has to be provided.
Sir, Ajam Singhvi sir, about the independent directors. About the independent directors, this is means troubling lot of companies. So what exactly is the law? What companies are required to have independent directors on their board? What is the number they should have? What qualifications they must see in those persons whom they are appointing as independent directors? So if you can explain the complete law in respect of appointment of independent directors and its applicability on private limited companies.
So far as the appointment of independent directors, Section 149, subsection 4, provides that at least 1/3 number of the total number of directors shall be the independent directors in case of public listed companies having a paid-up share capital of Indian rupees 1,000 crores or more, or public companies which have outstanding loans or borrowings or debentures or deposits exceeding Indian rupees 2,200 crores. Now the question is, according to section 149(4), only these two sort of companies are have to appoint the independent directors. But as Anil Mathur Sahab said, that indirectly there will be a responsibility for the appointment of independent director in case of CSRs. Now the question is, what are the qualifications and who can become the independent directors? So far as the qualifications and remuneration and tenure of the independent directors, now the language which has been used by the Act is that an independent director shall possess appropriate balance of skills, experience, knowledge in the fields of finance, law, management, sales, marketing, administration, research, corporate governance, technical operations and other disciplines related to company's business. Because in none of these areas they have used the word, they have put commas, not or. It means all the qualifications, they are to be taken together. Had it been or, because just like finance or law or management or sales or marketing, nothing is there. It means all these qualifications, they are to be taken together.
Independent directors are more qualified than the,
They are, yes.
than the business.
Now the question is, the person who is an outsider, an independent director, but he will never work as independent because the promoters of the company or the directors from the promoters, they will have more bigger role because everything is with them. Either the executive director or the managing director, they will have the upper role. Independent director cannot do anything. You are not going, you have defined it, that you have to be like this. But they have not given any powers for functioning of the board, because they will be on the board. Now, an independent director shall not be entitled to stock option or may receive remuneration by way of fees, reimbursement of expenses for participation in the board and other meetings, and profit related to commission is approved by the board of members. Now question is again, then he is to spend his own time. What is to be given? Board fees, that is to be given. Now remuneration is to be given, then the part of, according to section 197 and 198. And furthermore, an independent director shall not hold office more than 5 years, consecutive, and another for 5 years. Thereafter he cannot be there. Now the person has been held responsible for 5 years to look after the affairs of the company in respect of all the fields. He is not allowed. Next, another 5 years. Now the question is, in case of the company which are already having independent directors in the companies, already there are. Now in that case, if they have already covered up a period of 10 years, they are bound to be shunted away. And in place of that, those persons, other independent directors are to be taken and they will remain there for this in the board. Now how to select an independent director, again problem. Section 150 provides the manner of selection of independent directors. That an independent director may be selected from a data bank containing names, addresses, qualifications of the persons who are eligible and willing to act as independent. Now the question is willing. As independent director maintained by any body, institute or association as prescribed by the central government. Powers have been given to the central government. Now in that case, after reading out all the provisions of the new Companies Act, who is the person who will offer his services to the company as to act as independent director? The appointment shall be approved by the company in the general meeting. That is a formality. The appointment of shall be approved. The data bank, now what is the data bank again? Shall consist of the following particulars regarding the persons willing and eligible to be an independent director. Number one, director's identification number. He is to first apply for his identification number, name and surname in full, PAN number, father's and spouse name, gender, nationality, occupation, full address with PIN code, educational and professional qualifications, and details of experience and expertise. Now the question is, just like a person, he is applying for a job, he is being asked for all these things. Now giving all these data, now they have mentioned the educational and professional qualifications. If suppose a person is law graduate along with a chartered accountant, or a law graduate with a company secretary, or a BCom with a law graduate, what sort of experience which he has got to become an independent director? Whereas he has been asked to perform all those skills, experience in finance, everything. If he does not do it, there are very many problems for it. Now, in that case, now the companies, within 1 year, the existing companies, they have to appoint within 1 year from the date of notification of the rules, comply with the requirements of the provisions of subsection 4 of independent directors. If they do not do it, suppose by any process of law they have otherwise forgotten anything done, then they have every officer in default. Now the question is, every officer which has been defined differently in the Companies Act, fine not less than rupees 50,000 or which may extend to rupees 5 lakhs. Now a for appointment of independent, and I do not find, because while putting up this particular section in the Companies Act, Sachin Pilot, the then Company Minister, said that we want to have the corporate governance. Now, corporate governance means by appointing the independent director, can company achieve the governance? By giving the transparency in all these accounts, etc., everything?
Yes, therefore the question remains whether this will bring corporate governance merely appointing.
Not at all.
So sir, we will come back to you because I have received a slip for, say, advancement of the conclusion of this session. Therefore, my queries, if you allow, would be to Nisar Ahmed Sahab about deposits.
I will be more...
Because we know all of us present here are very keen to understand what is the way out of the new law where the companies are prohibited, private limited companies are prohibited from accepting loans and deposits other than from their directors. Previously, directors और उनके relatives और shareholders से हम लोग loan ले सकते थे, private limited companies. Things बहुत आसानी से चल रही थी, business के लिए पर्याप्त पैसा मिल रहा था. So निसार अहमद साहब, आप चूंकि इस law making process में भी हिस्सा रहे हैं, तो just very short, because हम सब लोगों के लिए बहुत मुश्किल है ये digest कर पाना कि ऐसा कानून में बदलाव क्यों किया गया है. So just in 1 or 2 minutes, if you can explain what was the reason for bringing this change. Thereafter, I will raise the queries and you will have to provide us with the ways out.
Thank you, Sudhanaji. See, deposits issue are a very larger issue. The government has now started putting in. Once there was a debate during the process of drawing the law. The debate was whether a company which is not a non-banking finance company should allow to accept deposits or not. And the consensus at that time was not to allow the other form of, if at all you have a form of business to get some money, go to the banker, institution, shareholders and so other forces except to go, because at that time when this law was being framed, discussion was there in the ministry. Around dozen of cases have come where thousands of depositors were there on the road asking for the money being paid to these companies, plantation companies, non-banking finance companies. You know this North India and every part of this country. And a lot of slogans were there, investor protection, Mr. Kirit Somaiya, the present MP, and so many other activists. They were shouting on the government, why can't you ban this money, fly-by-night operators? They have been now accepting deposits at 32% rate of return. Average, 32% rate of interest in some cases I've seen. I don't want to name the companies, but companies have accepted deposits and they have been hiring people to accept deposit by whatever means. It's just to bring money. So these are the issue. Now the question here is, with a lot of resistance from the chambers, they allow, large base companies should be allowed to accept deposits, provided they have been rated, like capital is 100 crores and so on and so. Now coming to the private company, I think something is missing. Director and their relatives should be added there. So long as that, and genuine case. But now what they did it, only says the directors, if they are bringing money to this company, it will be exempted from the deposit acceptance, public deposit definition. But otherwise, it will not be treated as, it will be treated deposit and you have to comply with various laws unless you are required. Like one question that has come. Therefore, the question, the larger picture is that not all the companies asked to accept deposit. Anyway, earlier private company was not expecting.
So sir, probably we all were expecting कि शायद कानून में कुछ परिवर्तन आ जाए. तो अब कोई संभावना आपके हिसाब से नहीं लगती है कि कानून में परिवर्तन आएगा?
Still we are discussing and then we already discussed and maybe you will find in February something.
So accepting this fate that yes, this law will continue as it is. The questions which we need to answer for the delegates here. So the first question is, what is the position of the loans or deposits taken from the relatives of the directors and the shareholders prior to 31st of March 2014? There is a view that those were not deposits under the old law, therefore they need not be reported to ROC and they need not be refunded by 31st of March 2015. So it's a big question for all of us here. You give us what is the way out, whether we can skip repaying them before 2015, skip not reporting them to ROC. What is the real position?
No. If you see this rules that has come later part, and after this section 73, 76, any money which was there prior to 31st March, which were not at that time termed as a deposit within the meaning of Companies Act 2013, shall not be treated as deposit, because law cannot go travel back. Yes, indeed, if the law amount is subsisting on or after 1st of April in the books of account as opening balance, as unsecured loan or share application money, etc. It says, if the money is received from any person other than director, it shall be treated as deposit. If the share application money, it should capitalize within 60 days. If that not so, then you have to refund the money in 15 days time. And if you do not do, it will be treated as deposits. And
the first very specific question
I'm coming to. So therefore, 1 year time has been given under 74. If any deposits within the meaning of Companies Act 2013. So 1st of April, when you account for as a opening balance, 31st March you are having the share application money, still you are showing in your books of account on 1st of April, share application money opening account or unsecured loan opening account. Then it is a called deposit. That view has been now, there is a very conservative view of course, by 31st March 2015, this money should be, square up, either you capitalize or refund or you get rid of from this, otherwise you need to submit this form 3 months time, DPT4, that has been extended. So that is the part. One question that has come from Mr. Bhupendra Mantriji, and the question is with regard to 2C7, it talks about amount received and held pursuant to an offer made in accordance with its exempted deposits. But his question is, does amount received for debenture unsecured, is in bracket, or bonds will be excluded from deposits? My answer is 2, yes or no.
Don't give one answer only.
No, I'm coming to. My answer is...
My very humble request, as a consultant, what will you advise to your client?
Coming, sir. My answer is yes, and also say no. Yes in the sense now, if you cannot go and take shelter behind 2C7, you go back and see 2C9, and it talks about money received for debentures. There is one clause. If money received for debentures, it should be secured debentures, should be excluded. But if you say unsecured, because his question is, Mr. Mantri question is within bracket unsecured. My worry only here is the moment you say unsecured, and if you do not, then it will be called deposits. But the moment you said secured, then it is falling under 2C9. And therefore you will be out from the term deposit. But provided you have to create a security of the asset, not intangible assets, of the amount of the money, not less than the amount of security should not be lesser than the money which you have received for secured. Or, just give one more line, or what you do is, you get the money towards subscription towards the debentures and you write fully convertible debenture, because then you can retain for 5 years. Need not require to create any security. So that answer to Ms. Mantri is to please, if you really wish to retain the money, not to allot the share, you should the debenture, fully convertible debentures. And the maximum period is of that to retain that money for 5 years conversion. But you cannot now retain retrospective, refund the money, say that now you don't want to, you have to redeem the shares. So fully convertible debentures, you can do it for 5 years time conversion into equity, mandatory. Otherwise it will be deposit.
So friends, the first answer is that whatever money we received, the company received prior to 31st of March 2014, that was well in accordance with the law before that date, will have to be dealt with in accordance with the new law, and the confusion should not now prevail that they need not be refunded before 31st of March 2015 or need not be reported before a particular date. Yes, sir, Mutiwala sir wants to add. Any panelist wants to add, because these are very crucial issues, and I'll also request what is the exemption available when the amount is received for sale of goods or the real estate. Those should also be explained. And finally, sir, because we are really very short of time, my question to Nisar Ahmed sir would be, अब companies क्या करें? आपके हिसाब से अब companies के पास क्या रास्ता है, क्या prescription है, जो various companies हैं, where, because we feel, particularly in Rajasthan, we understand that business has come to a standstill almost because of this reason. Those who can convert themselves into LLP, they are doing that, but those who cannot convert them into LLP are finding it extremely difficult to carry on. So our request would be, what is your prescription for those companies? And before that, Mutiwala sir wants to add something.
Sir, Nisar sir, only point is that recent notification of 24 June 2014, which says that private company can accept the deposit if there are less than 50 members. And they can accept the deposit 25% of the paid up capital plus reserve or 100% of the reserve, whichever is higher. Now that notification, no doubt it was a draft notification. Can we not take the advantage of that draft notification? Because after all, it is for the benefit of the company. Because private company, in fact, it is a wrong presumption by the officers of the government that private money is used for the public. No, it is reversed, that public money is used by the private, and therefore public money, yes, safety is required. But private money, it is my private limited company. I myself and my wife or my children invest in the private company. I am at risk. My family is at risk. Why they should be restricted? And that is why the notification has been issued. This was discussed with the minister. Minister says, yes, I am issuing the notification. She has issued the draft notification, but that draft notification has not yet been enforced. So can we not take the advantage of that draft notification? Because everyone cannot refund the money. If I had the money, why I should, taken from my relative? I could have taken from my relative.
I think, you have already answered. Draft notification, it was there. Debates were like that. There was a misuse in the series of cases. This has been reported. By issuing one share, you are having crores of rupees, and that money is coming, they are not related to, and that has never ever been now compromised.
Sir, but question is, private company,
no interest.
Private company cannot invite subscription from outside. It will invite only from the friends and relative. If one has a confidence in me, my friend or my brother has a confidence in me, he will take the one share and give me the deposit. So it is again not a public money. Public money means when you borrow from the bank, when you borrow from the financial institution. And according to me, sir,
my request is what the law should be, we should not discuss. Yeah. We should discuss what the law is today, what is the way out of that.
As of now, as I mentioned, but yes, indeed, if this word to be added, what we have been discussing with the ministry, directors and their relatives.
And sir, that notification also asked them to finalize?
They have been still, they are condemned. There are two extreme views. That's the reason it's become a draft, and no more now, it's become now law. But anyway, yes, if it is there, then larger issue would be raised. But as regards your part, it says there is it is exempted deposits so long as the money is received advance for a specific purpose, for service, for supply and for the goods and supply of services. And the time frame is there, you can complete the process within 365 days. So there is adequate time. So you cannot take behind these as deposits, So as far as the staff is concerned, that you're concerned that, the companies are not accepting deposits from the public within the meaning of 73. These are different. The deposits of public by a public company within the meaning of 76 are totally different. That require a kind of control. Okay, you cannot accept deposit if you are not having worth to pay. And if that is so, Now, as regards the businesses part is concerned, advance against, like allotment of flats. Money is now there. Some construction is there. And then you have deposit except money from.
No, sir, please understand, our real specific query is, it is not the money against which we are going to allot flat. It is in fact loan. We want loan from the market. The private limited company wants loan from the market. If it is a genuine case where a prospective purchaser of the flat or a prospective purchaser of a plot of land, as the query is sent to you, then there is no issue involved in that. Even beyond 365 days, probably in respect of real estate, if the sale is done, then there is no problem. But my very humble request is, sir, can you suggest, or is there any possibility, some way out of taking loan by these private limited companies under the present law? Or if there is a no, then we accept that.
Before I come to your question, answer to your question, I have a question before me, Mr. CA Gupta. Certainly it is not a deposit if the money, a colonizer accepting advance money against, from customer, it means in installments from its customer, against booking of land. Booking of land is not, but allotment, if you have land, then advance money against land, purchase of lands in installments, then it is a deposit, very clearly mentioned. But if it is allotment, some piece of, already you have given allotment, and you have deferred the acceptance of money in installments, then you are out from the deposit definition. That is the portion. But if you are only giving, now coming to your questions, yes, indeed, this is a very large issue because, and government is now aware of it.
No, government is not aware, sir.
Since aware of all these issues, aware of that, then there are no, and being discussed. Almost this deposit issue has been discussed. This 73 to 76, rather government has gone one step further to protect the interest by invoking 76A in the Amendment Act, which was passed by the Parliament. 76A. Yes. So government has almost seen through all these discussions with the minister, with the state minister and so and so, and finally says adequate safeguard is there in the deposit acceptance of, like, which are not amount to deposit, clause C. But this is the state of affairs, unless and until we go and further, But I feel personally, if this relative part is added into this matter, directors and relatives exempted money, because my son, I am a director.
So that answer is there. The old deposits, in his opinion, will have to be refunded back. They become deposit within the new law, and therefore those have to be refunded before 31st of March 2015. No, that is the problems of no money. Probably the panel cannot answer that. The panel can answer the legal position. Sir, that is one view, that your view is also possible, not denied, but one expert view, probably all panelists agree that his view is a correct view, but the other view is also possible.
Money is invested in a project which was legal at the time of taking the loan. Now you are saying that pay the loan. How we can pay the money?
Sir, I am not saying pay the loan. Sir, we know, we all are facing, as a professionals, as a consultants, we all are facing this problem. But let us understand what really is the law, what really we have to advise to our clients. The consensus of the panel here is that as per the new law, that amount becomes refundable. That is what we have to convey to our clients. Now it is up to them, because we will, unless we convey them, we say that there is no problem, then probably we may be wrong in our advice.
Already around 100 applications, almost 100 applications that has come from various part of the government India, saying that 1 year cooling period is too less. And one of the application, I don't want to name again the company, was given to the minister, and I'm privy to that. It says, as on 31st of March 2014, before the law came into being, we have accepted deposits. We are allowed to accept a deposit, and the period of deposit for 3 years. there is a contract between depositors and the company to accept the deposit. Maximum period is 3 years, and we have accepted it. We have invested this money for my business plan for 3 years, knowing that in 3 years' time I am going to repay. Now you are by 74 invoking, you are saying that 1 year time you refund, because you are not eligible to continue to, you cannot even renew the deposit. You refund the money, and the window is given 365 days. That is 1 year by 31st March 2015. Now there is already applications, there are coming from Beverage, like your case, the genuine party. The government asking that to extend the cooling period of 1 year to 3 years. It requires amendment in the statute. It requires parliament note, because it is coming from the section 74 itself. The embargo is now not from rules, which require amendment quickly. It requires amendment in the statute. I think from this side, every company is started writing through Chamber of Commerce, association, a professional body. Government is having around 100 cases like. You can send this communication, but as of today, the position is like that if it is outstanding deposits, which are in nature of, as per the new law, which is falling under deposit, prior to that you have, and if you are continuing this entry, you conclude by 31st March, otherwise it will be tantamount of violation of acceptance of deposit rules, and 76A, which was recently going to be enacted in 10 days from now, is going to invoke. Yeah, that's a very larger, 7 years, or fine is 2 lakh crore.
Sir, one query, whether a loan taken from non-banking finance company, is it violative, or can we borrow the money from non-banking finance company, because the definition of deposit is not clear about
No, I think, these three institutions, banking institution, NBFC registered with RBI. If a company which is registered with RBI is exempted from the provisions of 773 to 76.
So NBFC is exempted. We can borrow the money from NBFC.
NBFC registered with Reserve Bank of India.
Of course, NBFC registered
they are
with.
exempted. You can borrow the money.
You can also accept money from public financial institutions.
That is right. Banks and public financial institutions, that is possible. लेकिन वो देते कहाँ हैं सर पैसा? दिक्कत तो ये है. Sir, probably I have lot of queries with me. Our own queries are pending, but I am getting third reminder that Atul Gupta ji's flight is at something 5:30 p.m. Therefore, I am left with no choice but to conclude the session in next 2-3 minutes. A final query, the last query which is received, I will address that query to Motiwala Sahab, which says what is the responsibility of the auditor when these refunds are not made before 31st of March 2015. Probably a very valid query. All of us are going to face this problem. What is the way out? What way it has to be reported? So this is the query to Motiwala Sahab. And probably this will be the last query, and thereafter I'll request Honorable Justice Bindal Sahab to give his concluding remarks for conclusion of the session.
Now the point is, if deposit is not refunded, naturally it is a management responsibility. Auditor will have to qualify that deposit has not been refunded. And he has to show, because auditor will not pay the deposit, right? It is the management has to pay, and it is not, management has not paid due to any circumstances. Probably management is going through rough weather. Then only alternative to the auditor is that he has to qualify in his audit report that deposits have not been repaid as required under the Act. Right. Sir.
Thank you very much. And my request to Bindal Sahab for his concluding remarks as the chairman of this session.
What I have understood from all this panel discussion is, we are living in a welfare state. So where the state is to take care of food, shelter and everything for every citizen or resident of the country. Maybe the object was that they should have a new act which is litigation free, but I think they have created more work for the professionals. Now the kind of, yes, more work for the professionals. The kind of provisions, as you have seen, we have discussed here, lead to two different interpretations. As on today only, we have seen that there are different opinions on many things. There are penal consequences provided for the auditors also. Now I don't know if the returns may be filed within time. All right, some auditor is filing the returns. Yes, this is the fraud, this. Whether there is infrastructure available with CLB or wherever the return is filed or ROC or something to examine all these things. I don't think there are experts available. These all will go and remain in files only. Now, more things have also been said. Regarding penalty also, yes, when service tax was introduced, probably in that time also, they did not provide for any penalty for default and all that. But the question still remains that the purpose for which everybody was expecting that new act will have some good governance or good corporate governance, as per the opinion of the experts, I think has not been achieved. So this is the sum total, I think, of this session. There is one query raised by Mr. Bantia from Bhopal. He says for independence of tax administration under Article 50 of the Constitution, appeal and stay should be free from red tapeism and bureaucracy. I think his problem is more of practical, because as far as prior payment and all that is concerned, in tax administration, all these provisions have been upheld by the Supreme Court. So practically what happens, that is a different thing, but as far as judiciary is concerned, relief is granted in many cases, so that way the judiciary is independent. I am not talking about the department as such, because there the views are always different, they always have targets and all that to collect taxes. So this is my opinion on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all the participants, the panel speakers, and the chairman of this session, Honorable Justice Bindal Sahab. Thank you all. And friends, this was a new experiment which we did. I don't know whether it was useful or not, or what improvements to be done, because tomorrow Prakash Parwal ji will be having similar session. I'll request your inputs on the way it should be conducted. You can tweet it for the benefit of tomorrow's session. Thank you very much for participation in this interactive session. Thank you very much.